Sukkot is 7 days and has one name. Taka comes the 8th day, Shmini Atzeres, has another name. Pesach, 7 days, has one name. Al Kapanim in the Torah, one name. The Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos, we call it Chag HaPesach. Shavuos, the Yom Tov of Shavuos is 1 day and has 4 names. In today's Shiur, Beis Hashem will try to go through the 4 names, the explanation of the 4 names. I want to give credit to today's Shiur to Yitzi Pariser, because he asked me where one of the names come from, as we'll soon see in the Shiur, that it's not in the Torah. I figured it's kedai to go through to clarify the Shemus HaChag. Name number 1, Chag HaKotzer. It's a pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim, V'chag HaKotzer B'kurei Ma'asecha. What's B'chag HaKotzer? Kotzer Meloshen K'tzira. So Rashi explains, because the first time that we brought Tvua from Chitim in the Beis HaMikdash was Shavuos. It was Mater Chodosh in the Beis HaMikdash Tvua. So of Chitim. So Oirim we brought already the Omer, Pesach, Mashek in Chitim in the Beis HaMikdash. For everybody else, it became mutter already right away, but in the Beis HaMikdash, it became mutter only Shavuos. So that's Chag HaKotzer. In Parshas Kisisa, Bikurei K'tzir Chitim, Zokt Rashi, the Shtei Alechem is Ba Min HaChodosh from the K'tzir Chitim, which means Chag HaKotzer, you allowed to cut it earlier, but from the freshly cut Chitim, the first time that was brought in the Beis HaMikdash was Shavuos. So that's Chag HaKotzer. Name number 1, Chag HaKotzer. The Avudraham from the Rishonim says, why do we read Megillas Rus on Shavuos? Zokt Avudraham from a pasuk in the first parak in Megillas Rus. The pasuk says, Bo Beis Lochem B'tchilas K'tzir Sa'irem. Because of that pasuk, a little bit bedoima like why we read the Haftarah that's connected to the parasha, Zokt Avudraham, we read Megillas Rus because of this pasuk. Kufa was that Kufa. Reb Chaim Volozhin in Chut HaMeshulish in the Hakdama asks on this Avudraham, what was the pasuk? The pasuk says B'tchilas K'tzir Sa'irem. So he asks, Shavuos is not Tchilas K'tzir Sa'irem. Chag HaKotzer is referring to Chag HaKotzer of Chitim. K'tzira Sa'irem was already Pesach. Here's Shavuos is K'tzir of Chitim. Al Kapanim, that's name number 1, Chag HaKotzer, for calling the Chitim to bring the Shtei Alechem in the Beis HaMikdash. The second name, Yom HaBikurim, the pasuk in Parshas Pinchas, Perek Chav Ches. Zok the pasuk Yom HaBikurim B'Krivcha Mincha Chadasha. Like Rashi explains also, what's Bikurim? Avad is a whole Mesechtes Bikurim Mishnayos for Klal Yisrael that brought Bikurim. But when the Torah is speaking about Bikurim, the Torah is talking about the first Bikurim that was brought. That was the Shtei Alechem from Chitim, like we just mentioned. So B'Yom HaBikurim is also referring to the Shtei Alechem. Avada, all other Bikurims that came after from all of Klal Yisrael was continuing on this Bikurim. So B'Yom HaBikurim is also referring to the Shtei Alechem. Again, Chag HaKotzer is because it was the first chitim that we brought for the Shtei Alechem, and Yom HaBikurim is also the first time that we brought from the Shivas Aminim, from the chitim Al Kapanim. So 2 out of the 4 names of Shavuos are referring to the mitzvah that we have on Shavuos. Sukkos, Chag HaSukkos, It's because we have the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah. We have other mitzvahs also, Dalet Minim. Chag HaMatzos is because we have the mitzvah of Achilas Matzah. So what's the Yom Tov that's coming up? What's the mitzvah? The mitzvah is Shtei Alachem. That's the one mitzvah that we have on Shavuos that's connected to the Yom Tov. B'doimet to Matzah to Sukkot. The third name, also mentioned in the Torah a few times, is Chag HaShavuos. So we call the Yom Tov of Shavuos Chag HaShavuos. The Pasuk says in Parshas Kisisa, V'chag Shavuos Tasalach. The Yom Tov of Shavuos coming up in Parshas Re'ei V'asisa Chag Shavuos L'Hashem. And then a few psukim later, the Pasuk says, Shalosh Pa'amim B'Shana. We spoke about this a little while back, the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. 3 Yom Tovim Yimachuyev, these are mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. And it's like the Pasuk, B'chag HaShavuos. So the Torah calls it Chag HaShavuos, the Yom Tov of weeks. Why? What is Chag HaShavuos? Because we just finished counting now. The Aruch HaShulchan speaks it out clearly. Could be, I'm sure, the Rishonim, it's clear like that. Chag HaShavuos, because we just finished counting now 7 weeks. So Mamela, Chag HaShavuos. We just finished. And the Teretz is L'siyuma shel mitzvah. It's the Yom Tov because we just finished a long mitzvah of 7 weeks. Zman Matan Torah Seinu, that's not a name. We have Chag HaKotzer, we have Yom HaBikurim, we have Chag HaShavuos. Zman Matan Torah Seinu, that's a time. Shavuos is the time of Matan Torah. Just like Pesach doesn't have a name, you don't call Pesach Zman Cheiriseinu. Pesach is a time of Cheiris, Zman Cheiriseinu. So Shavuos is a time of Matan Torah, Zman Matan Torah Seinu, but that's not the name of the Yom Tov. Lastly, the fourth name is Chag HaAtzeres. Chag HaAtzeres. Shavuos is called Chag HaAtzeres. Where do you find Chag HaAtzeres? So you do not find Chag HaAtzeres L'gabei Shavuos in the Torah. The Torah calls Chag HaAtzeres the Yom Tov of Shmini Atzeres, a Chag Hazeh. Shmini Atzeres, the Torah calls Atzeres. And Shvi Shel Pesach, the Torah calls Atzeres. In Parshas Pinchas, B'yoyim HaShmini Atzeres Tiyeh Lachem. So the Torah calls Shmini Atzeres, Atzeres. And L'gabe Shvi Shel Pesach in Parshas Re'ei, Sheishes Yom Toichel Matzos, U'bayoyim HaShvi Atzeres. That's what the Torah calls Atzeres. Nowhere else does the Torah call Yom Tov Atzeres. Not the first day of Sukkot or Pesach, and Shavuos as well, also not. So where does this fourth name of Shavuos come from? Again, Chag HaKotzer, Yom HaBikurim, those first 2 names, as we saw in the Torah, is referring to the Shtei Alachem. Chag HaShavuos, also in the Torah a few times, is referring to Shavuos, the weeks that we counted. Where is the Makor for the fourth name of Shavuos, Chag HaAtzeres? So even though it's not in the Torah, it's mentioned in Chazal many times. In Mishnayos Bikurim, the Mishnah says, Perek Aleph Mishnah Gimel, Ein Mevi'in Bikurim Kaidem Atzeres. When could you start bringing Bikurim? Only from Atzeres, from Shavuos. The Mishnayos in Shavuos, Beis Hillel Oimrim, Ada Atzeres. From when Ad Emes HaChoshim B'stei Elon. Till when? So B'Sham Yom calls Man Shiyafal previous. So I'm Ad Atzeres till Shavuos. From Shavuos of the 6th year, you have to already stop. These are more Mishnayos. I'll say some of them. The Mishnah in Sukkah. Batzeres, dividing up when you give the shtei lechem upon him. I'm sorry, and if it falls out on Shabbos, Shavuos falls out on Shabbos. Batzeres olim loy helach matzah helach chametz. The shtei lechem was the chametz. So memela, like the Mishnah, you give out the chametz, you give out the matzah. Batzeres Shavuos. The Mishnah Baba Basra. You're selling wine, it has to last till Shavuos. The Mishnah in Chulin, you have to tell him, so it shouldn't be Oisir Es Benoi, the Erev Atzeres, Erev Shavuos. The Mishnah in Idias, Akaponim. A bunch of Mishnayos, you find that Shavuos is called Atzeres, and it's not in the Torah. So to be able to understand properly why the Torah didn't call it Atzeres and why Chazal did call it Atzeres, we have to back up and see why Taka does the Torah call Atzeres where it does call Atzeres. Like we mentioned earlier, the Torah calls Atzeres Shmini Atzeres and Shvi Shal Pesach. Why only over there? Why not the first days? Why not the first days of Sukkot and Pesach? So what's Bechlal the Taish of Atzeres? Zokt Rashi on the Pasuk on Atzeres. Zokt Rashi, Atzeres is Maloshen Atzoir, refraining, holding back from doing Malacha. You're not allowed to do Malacha on Yom Tov. That's the Loshen Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres, it's Yom Tov and you're not allowed to do Malacha. That's Atzeres, Maloshen Atzoir, holding back from doing malacha. Good. So why doesn't the Torah call every single Yom Tov Atzeres? Every single Yom Tov, you're supposed to refrain from malacha. So why dafka the Shmini Atzeres and Shvi Shal Pesach? Why not the first days of Yom Tov also? So the Kedushas Levi explains. He goes on this Rashi and explains why taka not the first day Sukkot and the first day Pesach. So he explains that the pshat is the first day Sukkot, it's Yom Tov, even without the Atzeres to hold back, refraining from malacha. What defines it as a Yom Tov? You sit in the Sukkah, you take Dalet Minim, that defines it as a Yom Tov. Masha Enkein Shmini Atzeres, there's no mitzvah sayoim, right? There's no mitzvah sayoim of Shmini Atzeres. Shvi Shal Pesach, there's no mitzvah sayoim. So the only thing that defines it as a Yom Tov is Atzeres. This that you're not allowed to do malacha. So maybe it's clear why the Torah calls Atzeres, Shmini Atzeres, and Shvi Shal Pesach, like Rashi says, Meloshen, refraining from doing malacha. And why not all Yom Tovim, why not the first day of Pesach, the first day of Sukkot? The teretz is because it's a Yom Tov, even without refraining from malacha, you have mitzvah sayoy. So now let's go over to Shavuos. We want to try to answer two things. First of all, why didn't the Torah call it Atzeres? And why did Chazal call it Atzeres? Right? Two things we want to answer. Why the Torah didn't call it Atzeres? Explains the Chazon Yecheskel or Chatzkel Abramsky, but the second chelik is more what we is coming to be Machadish. But Shavuos, also, as we spoke before, Shavuos has a mitzvah, Chag HaKotzer, Chag HaBikurim, it has the mitzvah. So Memela, That's the mitzvah. It's not only atzeres. These are mitzvah bringing the shtei alechem. So maybe when the Torah says hatzeres, the only thing in Yom Tov is to refrain from malacha. That's only Shvi Shal Pesach and Shmini Atzeres. Shavuos, you have a mitzvah. Just like you have Pesach Matzah and Sukkos to sit in the sukkah, Shavuos, you have Chag HaKotzer, Chag HaBikurim to bring the Shtei Alachem. That's the mitzvah of Shavuos. So even if there'd be no Isser Malacha on Shavuos, there's still a Yom Tov of Shavuos, al Chag HaKotzer, Chag HaBikurim to bring the Shtei Alachem. So maybe we understand why the Torah didn't call Shavuos Chag HaTzeres. So why did Chazal call the Yom Tov of Shavuos, as we showed many Mishnayos, Atzeres? The Torah doesn't call it Atzeres because it's a mitzvah, so why did Chazal call Atzeres? So he continues on to explain Moiridik. Hayois Bizman she'ein Beis Hamikdash Chaim. We no longer have the mitzvahs Hayoim of the Shtei Alechem. You could only bring the Shtei Alechem if you have the Beis Hamikdash. Now we don't have the Shtei Alechem. So kum techois Bizman Hazeh. Bizman Hazeh, when the Mishnayos was written la'achar HaChurban, Shavuos is unfortunately no longer a Yom Tov to be able to do the mitzvahs Hayoim. Sukkos Bizman Hazeh, they never called that Atzeres the first day because you could still sit in the sukkah. You could still take Daled Minim the first day. Pesach Bezman Hazeh, the first day, we still have the mitzvah say the rice of matzah. But Shavuos, we do not have the mitzvah Hayoim. So Mamela Chazal went ahead and called it Atzeres, that today, Yom Tov of Shavuos, the only thing we have that defines it as a Yom Tov is the Issa Malacha. This, what the Chazon Yecheskel, B'chatzkal Bramsky, and Chadush Sharim is muvur like that as well also. Just Lohoi Sofas Inyan to bring out this Yisoid. This is not an overlap from last night's Shiur. The Ramah says an explanation of the minig of Shavuos. What's not the minig? There's a few minhagim, but one of the minhagim of Shavuos is to eat milchiks. Many different minhagim, whether if it's the night suda, the day, only a kiddush, the minig is to eat milchiks. Dr. Ramah, what's the pshat that we eat milchiks? Why do we eat milchiks? There's many reasons. Dr. Ramah, you start your suda milchiks, and you have one pass, and then you continue on to fleishiks, and then you have to switch the bread. That's the halacha. You can't use the same bread from milchiks to fleishiks. So you bring another bread. So it comes out, if you're going to eat milchiks and then fleishiks, you're going to have two breads. If you have two breads, zeichel shtei alachem. Shtei alachem, we have two breads. But the Ramah says, b'doima, to what we did Pesach, that we had a Zroya and a Beya, Zecher, L'Karban Pesach, L'Karban Chagiga. Okay. I want to ask you, Bishloim Pesach, we do a Zecher L'Chagiga, Zecher L'Karban Pesach, because that's relevant to all of us. You don't make a Zecher to the Karban Musaf that you bring every Yom Tov or every Shabbos. We don't make a Zecher to the Karban Oimer that we brought Pesach. Why are we making a Zecher to the Karban Shtei Alechem? Okay, so in the Tefillah Taka, so it should be also, why do we make a Zecher, Dr. Ramah, to eat milchiks, to eat two breads, Zecher l'Shtei Alechem? The Shtei Alechem wasn't brought by Klal Yisrael, it was brought by Shlichus of Klal Yisrael, but it was brought in the Beis Hamikdash, like the Karban Musaf. So, there should be a separate good. Good. You should be in the Musaf. You should be Shtei Alachem. We said it already 12 months ago, so I'm forgetting. Do we say it in Musaf? I want to check. Do we say? in the Tfilas Musaf, do we say Shkoyach Rabbi Yosef? Musaf of Shalosh Regalim.
It's the carbon Musaf of the day, or it's another carbon? There was a different direction.
There was a Shtei Alachim, it was a separate carbon. And the Shtei Alachim came with 2 Kisvei Atzeres, was its own carbon.
Why isn't that matter the Yashan? No, sorry, the Chadash now. That's Negeh, that's also.
So the emes is you're asking very good. L'chayr would be Negeh what the carbon accomplishes. So first of all, even if you would be right that it's matter the Chadash, that's a poil yotzu what comes out, but we don't bring it. Carbon Pesach, we brought the carbon Pesach. Maybe we didn't shecht it, but we ate the carbon Pesach. Shtei Alechem was something in the Beis Hamikdash. Bedoime to the Oimer, maybe it's mat or something, the carbon musaf, carbonis that gave us a kapara, but it's nothing to do with us bringing the carbon. But well asked, but on top of that also, the heter chodesh for us came already Pesach. Shavuos was even the heter chodesh was only heter in the Beis Hamikdash. So mamash doesn't have to do with us. So what's the pshat? Why do we make a zecher? It could be like what we're saying now, that Shavuos, unlike the other Yom Tovim, we poshut are missing the essence of the Yom Tov. Sukkos, we sit in the sukkah and we dalad minim, that's the Yom Tov of Sukkos. Pesach, we eat matzah, we have the mitzvah of matzah. The second, Shvi Shal Pesach, Shmini Atzeres, there is nothing to the Yom Tov, Avada is the Kedushas of Yom Tov, but there's nothing in Kiyam HaMitzvahs of Yom Tov besides Atzeres. Shavuos, we said, does have the mitzvah of Shtei Alachem. It's true that Shtei Alachem is only in the Beis HaMikdash and only for the Kahanim to eat the bread. But the reason we make a Zecher is because the whole Kiyam HaMitzvah of Shavuos is the Shtei Alachem. So that's why we make a Zecher. So be'etzem, it's more the geschmack. Chag Atzeres is not in the Torah for Shavuos, as we explained, because he's a mitzvah of Shtei Alechem. However, midrabanon they did call it. Chazal called it Chag Atzeres. Why did they call it Atzeres? Because Lamaisa now the only thing left for Shavuos is Atzeres, not to do malacha. And that's it. We could stop right here. Lamaisa, they ask on this pshat that the Targum already, Targum was in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, and the Targum calls Shavuos in Parshas Pinchas, Perik Chavches, Pasuk Chavav, the Targum calls Shavuos Atzeres. So that's a Gavaldige Kasha. We just said that Chazal came later and called it Atzeres, later on, after there was no more Shtei Alechem, so what was left of Shavuos is only Atzeres, not doing Malacha. But you see, the Targum calls Shavuos Atzeres when we were still bringing the Shtei Alechem.
When you're reading, you should learn the halakha. You should know the halakha to negate it here. Like the similar to the Turgum on the Shiur. To tell the Hamayinam about the Shtei Alechem, Hanim are bringing it. Maybe the point of the Targum to tell the people what to do, but there he is to use the Lashon Atzeres.
So you're saying there could be the Targum saying Lamai Nafka Mina Shavuos. So first of all, there could be other pshat, but also I want to double check, but I'm not borer. The Targum doesn't teach, right? Exactly. So that Al Kapanim. So we have a shaila over here. What's with Atzer? Why does Chazal after the Beis Hamikdash we understand, but why in the Targum you call Atzeres Shavuos Atzeres? Lamaisa, there are other pshatim why Chazal called the Yom Tov of Shavuos Atzeres. We'll go through briefly a couple of other pshatim, but Al Kopanim in the Torah that much we have it clear why the Torah doesn't call it Atzeres. It's because Lamaisa, there's a mitzvah b'doimit to the first day of Sukkot and Pesach. Shtei Alechem. And that's klar. That's klar. And that's important to know. Shavuos is coming up all late in Lataiva Wednesday and Thursday. Avada, these are minig to eat milchiks. And Avada, you stay up Shavuos night. And these are minig with flowers. But the Yom Tov of Shavuos, and it says Man Matan Torah Seinu. But Lamaisa, the Yom Tov of Shavuos comes. It came with the mitzvah of Shtei Alachem. The Aruch HaShulchan says the reason why Chazal called Shavuos Atzeres, Beloshen Atzer, refraining from what? Refraining. Klal Yisrael had a mitzvah, a tzivui before Matan Torah to be Poirish Min Ha'isha. Zok the Aruch HaShulchan, the reason why Shavuos is called Atzeres, to tell us, to remind us that the Torah was given to us by Kedusha. As Zok the Aruch HaShulchan. So it's taka the Torah doesn't call it Atzeres. Chazal came to remind us, to teach us, to tell us that the Torah was given to us by Kedusha. Ba'ofen l'chayrit to continue to learn Torah by Kedusha. As Zok the Aruch HaShulchan, Tov Tzadik Daled, Sif Aleph. Ke'enzeh, the Kedushas Levi himself doesn't say, we'll get to his pshat in a minute, but Ke'enzeh metoich dvarav, Klal Yisrael was also nitztava not to go up to refrain from going up to Har Sinai. Right? They couldn't go up al Talu al Har. They had to refrain at Soyer. Also, b'chahai gavna, to remember Shavuos was the day of Matan Torah. To remember that Maimed Har Sinai, B'doime, we put flowers that it was. So to remember that Maimed of Har Sinai, it's called Atzeres, Veloshen Atzoyer. We had to refrain from going up on Har Sinai. But the Kedushas Levi really says it a lot more, and he says, Al Pi the Ramban. The Ramban in Amunah B'tochen says that when a person has a Soiris, Zok the Ramban, if you don't plug this Soiris into something, it's just going to pass. You have to plug it in somewhere. I remember personally, after the whole with the eclipse, everybody was busy. The next morning, davening, Yoitzer Oyer V'Oyer Choshech, the words of davening, I stopped and I thought, but you have to plug in a Soiris comes and it goes. Zok the Ramban, you have to plug it in somewhere. You have to plug it in, if not it just passes. See the Ramban inside. You put it into a mitzvah, you learn Torah and it absorbs this Iris, as Zok the Ramban. Zok the Kedushas Levi, when they came to Har Sinai, how did they absorb this Iris of the Maimed of Har Sinai? L'maisa, before they got the Torah, there was no mitzvahs yet. Zok the Kedushas Levi, they absorbed it, told the Torah. There was a few days, the Chanat Kabbalah Torah, how did they take that in? They put it in to the Atzeres, to the Atzer, that they refrain from going up to the Har. That's who they put it in. That's who they put in this Iris. So that's why it's called Atzeres on this of refraining and going up to Har Sinai, because that's who they plugged in this Iris. Another reason, the Ramban, we spoke about this Ramban, the first year of this Zman, the Ramban says that the days between Pesach and Shavuos are Chalamoid. It's like the Ramban, Parshas Emor. So the Ramban says it's Bedoima like this Chalamoid between in Sukkos to Shmini Atzeres, so too this Chalamoid now between Pesach and Shavuos. U'b'hoisafa, the Tosfos Anshe Shem and Shviyah says that really Shmini Atzeres of Sukkot also would have been 50 days later, but not to be Matriach, to come back, to be Oile Regel in the winter, so maybe they put it together. But Be'etzem, Shavuos is bedoima to the Shmini Atzeres. So that's why Chazal called it Atzeres. The Kedushas Levi says it's called Atzeres because it's at the end, Lashon stop. We just finished the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer. I just want to conclude with the Sipurnu, which was Avada earlier, but he goes back to another reason why the Torah doesn't call it Atzeres. All along we were going now, the Torah doesn't call it Atzeres. Why? Because there's a mitzvah of Shtei Alechem. Why Chazal did call it? We saw many different reasons. The supporter says another reason why the Torah didn't call it Atzeres, Shavuos. Why did the Torah call Shvi Shal Pesach Atzeres? Atzeres is Malashon stopping, gathering, as he says, to stop, to daven, to gather together. What happened Shvi Shal Pesach? By Kriyas Yamsuf, Klal Yisrael gathered together by Kriyas Yamsuf. So Be'etzem, Shavuos, Klal Yisrael also gathered together for Maimed Har Sinai. So Be'etzem it should be called Atzeres. However, since right after the Maimed of Har Sinai, Klal Yisrael didn't lose this that they gained of being together with the Chet HaEgel, Zok the Sapurna, they lost it, so that's why it's not called Atzeres. So Ibazoi, why Taka did Chazal yes call it Atzeres? We have other reasons, but it could be that Lamaisa B'nei Achashverosh Zok the Gemara Hader Kiblua, they got it back. Klal Yisrael got it back. So it could be Taka later on, even though we lost it B'zman Matan Torah because of the Chet HaEgel, but we got it back later. That's why Chazal did call Atzeres. Als the Atzeres of what we gathered of Har Sinai, because Lamais, even though we lost it with the Chet HaEgel, we got it back. So to sum up, we said these four names: the Shavuos, Chag HaKotzer, Chag HaBikurim in the Torah, that's referring to the Shtei Alechem. Chag HaShavuos in the Torah, that's referring to the mitzvah of Tzvira, the weeks that we counted. And lastly, Atzeres, not in the Torah. Chazal called it Atzeres, and we saw many reasons why the Torah, two reasons why the Torah didn't call it, and many reasons why Chazal did call. Have a wonderful Shabbos.